the Shark Deck.
Pretty robust Monday. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. This first one could be really interesting. If you're familiar with Barstool Sports, you may have seen that Dave Portnoy, the founder, had bought back the company for $1. That actually came up in trivia last week. But now that Dave's back in charge, he has bumped up Kevin Clancy, you know him as KFC, to GM of Comedy. And this is where it will get interesting specific to this podcast. They got a big profile in Deadline, and it quoted Chris DiStefano, who said, KFC Radio has helped me in my career immensely. Getting to be heard by the Barstool audience is huge for a comedian. KFC Radio has always had their doors open for new talent, too, which is always cool to see. Clancy told Deadline, I kept hearing about how comedy would be one of the branches at the company and how they were going to bring in a GM of comedy and not really knowing what that means. I'd been around long enough at Barstool where we have heads of content, heads of production, operations, all these different titles and managers who try to come in and implement new stuff. Without fail, 6 months down the road, that person would get a new gig or get fired. And here I am having changed all my content because some random person said so. And now what? I got to the point where I'm never going to listen to anybody else again. Specific to comedy, Clancy sees comedy as almost a Barstool within a Barstool branch. We have this new live stand-up show that the Out of Order guys host called Dollar Slices, and what I wanted was to have them do an underground, grimy, funny New York City stand-up show every month where they're hosting and featuring all these hot and up-and-comers that could be sold as the best new scene in New York for comic talent. As guys in New York City, we take for granted the comedy scene so badly. You could just walk outside and go to the Comedy Cellar, pay $15, and you get to see the best comics in the world 7 days a week that range from superstars at SNL working out their material to regulars always up on stage night to night to new guys just getting their start. I started to realize if I'm going to marry the internet to the comedy world, I think we should start live streaming comedy, and I think there's a world where we can bring the best comedy in the world to every house in America. His idea is to treat it like a sports ball game. Maybe it's him or one of the co-hosts anchoring, Clancy said. In my life, I feel like there are sports, and right beneath that are people that follow their favorite comic podcast the way they follow their favorite teams. Exactly. That's why I consider this like Sports Center for comedy. Clancy said, if I could bring that to those fans and up to the production level and bring the Barstool essence to it, and we become the guys who invented the live streaming comedy event you can watch in your house, that would be a lasting legacy for me. To elevate the industry for all the comics and to bring live streaming of live comedy to your computer or TV screen, those would be the two major things to blaze the trail on. For KFC Radio specifically, my dream would be, and Bert Kreischer described it best, as an East Coast Joe Rogan platform. Obviously, we're nowhere near his level, but the idea is you're on the West Coast promoting your special, you go on Rogan, he's in Austin. That's in the central of the country. And he can tap you, and he's that kingmaker, and you make that the next best thing. But if you're on the East Coast and you want the promotion, KFC Radio is kind of the East Coast version of that. Very, very interesting. They've got a big platform. That could make waves. Let's keep an eye on that. We've seen what Rogan's done in Austin. David Spade was on his podcast and talked about the time he turned down David Bowie's request to switch roles with him in an SNL sketch. In the sketch, Spade had himself playing a receptionist that stops you because he thinks that they're better than you, and he envisioned David Bowie making a cameo as himself. Bowie wasn't at the pitch meeting. Spade then got a message asking him to call Bowie at his hotel. As Spade tells the story, I called him and he answers, and it's effing Bowie. And he's like, this sketch is so effing funny. This is exactly my life and these people I see. And he goes, one tweak, can I play the receptionist? That's the funnier part. Bowie argued playing himself was kind of boring since everyone has seen that. He suggested that Spade play Bowie and Bowie play the receptionist. I actually think that's funnier. I agree with you, David Bowie's ghost. Spade turned it down because he was hoping it would turn into a recurring character. Bowie was persistent and said, well, what if the sketch never gets on the show? Spade's like, I'm like, do you know this show this well? It's so true. What if it doesn't get on? I'm blowing it. He's like, it'll get on if I do it. Spade admitted that the whole sketch may have backfired on him because not only did it not get picked up for the show, Spade didn't appear in any other sketches in the entire episode. He said the rest of the week I wasn't in the show, and I was like, F. Speaking of Saturday Night Live, the Please Don't Destroy guys, their debut movie is called The Treasure of Foggy Mountain. It'll be out in November. Whitney Cummings will tape a new special at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles on September 23rd. Maybe there's still some tickets available. You'll find a link on the 800-Pound Gorilla website. Greg Proops has a new album, French Drug Deal. Wow, that's a great title. That'll be out Friday, September 1st on A Special Thing Records. Recorded live at the Punchline in San Francisco on New Year's Eve. French Drug Deal follows Greg's previous release In the City, which he recorded live at the Punchline on New Year's Eve 2022. From pinknews.com, Grant Linehan performed a comedy show outside of Holyrood in Edinburgh to a tiny crowd after being axed from performing at an Edinburgh venue over his continued anti-trans campaigning, writes Pink News. After receiving complaints from the public, community hub Leith Arches announced that it had canceled Linehan's appearance as a guest on the Thursday show last week, hosted by GB News' Andrew Doyle. Then a second venue also axed Doyle and Linehan. So the gig organizers, Comedy Unleashed, put the show on the street where Linehan performed on a makeshift stage to about 50 people. A video of his street performance was posted on Twitter. X, whatever. Can we stop with the X? Twitter. Comments included, "I thought comedy's supposed to be funny." In an interview with Mail Online, Linehan said that trans rights activists need to be defeated completely. "I want to make it clear, I'm not talking about trans people. I'm talking about trans rights activists, two very distinct groups that often have nothing to do with each other. I just think they need to be defeated completely. It's important to at least stand in front of a microphone, even if it's just for a second, and show that these people don't get to push the rest of us around." And to demonstrate how times have changed and gotten crazy, Craig Ferguson's catchphrase used to be, "It's a great day for America." He said, "The thing is, when I say it now, and I'd still say it, but since about 2016, half the audience gets mad at the other half of the audience. I say, it's a great day for America, and they're like, what the hell do you mean by that? And the other people are like, no, he's right. Shut up. No, you shut up." The AV Club reviewed Chris Fleming's Hell. That came out on Peacock late last week. I have not had an opportunity to watch it yet. Again, just to catch everybody up, my mom is pretty sick, so I haven't had as much time to come home and watch stand-up comedy as I might normally have. Thank you for giving a hoot. Chris Fleming has long been a fairly niche figure, writes the AV Club. Luckily, Fleming has not jettisoned any of the flair that has made him a star among, as he says, quote, theater people who don't get cast. Fleming moves through topics with lightning speed. Minor spoilers here. The first 5 minutes alone. Spoilers. Riffs on parades, Bruce Springsteen and Barack Obama's podcast, and drivers of Nissan Cubes. The AV Club said the effect is pleasantly disorienting and immediately breaks down whatever protective wall the audience had up. Much of the set's success is owed to Fleming's physicality. The comedian's well aware of how bizarre his own body is, offering it up for a slightly nightmarish sight gag in the opening minutes where he vocally compares himself to a horse. Sounds kind of fun. And for Milwaukee Magazine, Taylor K. Phillips went on a road trip around the region to gain insight for her new book, A Guide to Midwest Conversation. The book chronicles, celebrates, and decodes all the characteristics of Midwest speak. Taylor says, I remember the first time in New York, I went up to the Starbucks barista and said, good morning, how are you? And he looked like it genuinely scared him. I'm very jokey, bubbly, and high energy, and in the Midwest, that's just normal, but on the coast, people say things like, your Midwest is showing. Back in Kansas City, she was at a coffee shop and heard someone say the phrase, well, you know, she's a character. Phillips says, basically it meant this woman is bonkers. You have to mentally prepare to interact with her. That's one of the first times I really noticed how different our phrasing is in the Midwest. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.